I don't have to pay. The words hung in the air like smoke in a room with no windows. They didn't just break the silence, they shattered it. In the Providence Municipal Court, you hear a lot of things. You hear excuses. You hear apologies. You hear the desperate pleas of people trying to choose between a parking ticket and their next meal. You hear, "I didn't see the sign, and I was rushing to the hospital." But you almost ever hear someone tell Frank Caprio that the rules simply do not apply to them. Especially not a 16-year-old girl standing at the podium, popping a bubble of gum with a casual snap that echoed through the microphone. The courtroom froze. The stenographer stopped typing. The police officers by the door, usually statues of indifference, shifted their weight, their eyes locking onto the bench. Inspector Quinn, the man who has seen everything from hardened criminals to weeping grandmothers, looked down at his paperwork as if checking to see if he had heard correctly. But the most terrifying reaction of all came from the man sitting high up on the bench. Judge Caprio didn't yell. He didn't bang his gavel. He didn't even frown. He just stopped. He took off his glasses, folded them slowly, and placed them on the stack of files in front of him. He leaned forward, clasping his hands together. The grandfatherly warmth that usually radiates from him was gone. In its place was a stillness that was far more intimidating than any shout could ever be. "Excuse me?" Caprio asked. His voice was soft, dangerous. The girl, let's call her Jessica, flipped her hair over her shoulder. She was dressed in the latest fashion. Torn jeans that cost more than a week's groceries for most people in the room, a designer bag slung carelessly over one shoulder, and an expression of utter, profound boredom. "I said," Jessica repeated, leaning her hip against the podium as if she were waiting for a latte. "I don't have to pay. My dad said so." And that was the moment the atmosphere in the room shifted from confusion to crisis. Because this wasn't just a traffic violation anymore. This was a collision, a high-speed crash between the unstoppable force of teenage entitlement and the immovable object of the law. To understand how we got to this moment, this precipice where a teenager thought she could stare down a judge, we have to go back about 20 minutes. Because the storm didn't start with thunder. It started with a breeze. It was a Tuesday morning in Providence. The docket was packed. The benches were filled with the usual cross-section of the city. College students clutching speeding tickets, construction workers with parking violations, elderly folks confused by new street signs. The hum of the room was anxious, but respectful. People knew where they were. Judge Caprio was in his element. He had just finished with a case involving a young single father who had parked illegally to pick up medicine for his sick daughter. It was a classic Caprio moment. He had listened, he had understood, and he had dismissed the ticket, sending the young man home with a handshake and a wish for his daughter's recovery. The room felt warm. It felt like justice was being served with a side of humanity. "Next case," Inspector Quinn called out. "State of Rhode Island versus Jessica M." Jessica didn't walk up to the podium. She sauntered. She was on her phone, typing a text message as she navigated the aisle. She didn't look at the flag. She didn't look at the bailiff. She certainly didn't look at the other people waiting their turn. She treated the courtroom like a waiting room at a dentist's office, an inconvenience she had to endure before getting back to her real life. When she reached the podium, she didn't put the phone away. She held it in her hand, the screen still glowing. "Name?" Quinn asked, his voice gruff. "Jessica," she said, not looking up. "Full name for the record, please," Quinn insisted. She sighed, a long, dramatic exhalation of air that signaled to everyone present just how much of a burden this was for her. "Jessica, last name. Can we hurry this up? I have practice in an hour." In the gallery, heads turned. You could see the eyebrows raising. A woman in the second row whispered something to her husband. The audacity was breathtaking. Judge Caprio was reading the file. He usually looks up with a smile, ready to greet a young person. He loves seeing kids in his courtroom. He loves asking them about school, about their dreams, about their favorite subjects. He sees them as the future. But when he looked up this time, the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He saw the posture. He saw the phone. He heard the tone. "Good morning, Jessica," Caprio said, keeping his voice neutral. "Hi," she said, looking at her fingernails. "You are here today for— Let's see." Caprio looked down at the file again. 3 speeding tickets, in 2 weeks, and a reckless driving charge. The room murmured. 3 tickets in 2 weeks? Most people go a lifetime without 3 tickets. For a 16-year-old, a new driver, that wasn't just carelessness. That was a pattern. That was dangerous. "You were doing 45 in a 25 zone," Caprio read, "then 50 in a 30. And the reckless driving, weaving in and out of traffic on North Main Street." He looked at her over his glasses. "Jessica, do you understand how dangerous that is?" Jessica shrugged. It was a small, dismissive movement of her shoulders. "Everyone speeds on North Main. I was just going with the flow. The officer's report says you were passing cars in the breakdown lane," Caprio noted. "Is that going with the flow?" "They were going too slow," she replied instantly, defensively. "I have a big car. It handles it. It's not like I hit anyone. It's not like I hit anyone. That sentence is the anthem of the lucky. It is the motto of people who mistake good fortune for skill. It is the logic of someone who thinks consequences are things that happen to other people." Judge Caprio leaned back. He has heard this logic before. Usually it comes from people who eventually end up in tragedies. He knows that the distance between "I didn't hit anyone" and "I didn't mean to kill them" is often just a matter of inches and seconds. "You are 16, Caprio said. "How long have you had your license?" 3 months. 3 months, Caprio repeated. "And in 3 months you have managed to accumulate fines totaling nearly $600. And points on your license that could suspend you." Jessica rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes at a chief judge. "Look," she said, shifting her weight again. "My dad said the signs aren't clear, and the cop was totally rude to me. He targeted me because I have a nice car." "The officer targeted you?" Caprio asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes. He was just jealous. He pulled me over and started lecturing me. I told him to just write the ticket so I could go." There was a collective gasp in the room. Even the bailiff looked shocked. "You told a police officer to just write the ticket?" Caprio asked, his voice getting quieter. "Yeah, I mean, what's the big deal? It's just a ticket, right? We pay it, and it goes away." And there it was. The world view. The philosophy that money is a solvent that dissolves all responsibility. Judge Caprio looked at her for a long moment. He was trying to find something in her face. A flicker of regret, a hint of nervousness. Anything that showed she understood the gravity of operating a 2-ton metal machine on public roads. But he found nothing. Just a wall of teenage invincibility. "It is not just a ticket," Caprio said firmly. "It is a summons to answer for breaking the law. It is a message that you are endangering the public." "Okay, whatever," Jessica said, checking her phone again. "Can I just pay it? My dad gave me his card." She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a sleek black credit card. She held it up like it was a magic wand. Like it was a get-out-of-jail-free pass. "I just want to get out of here," she added. Judge Caprio stared at the credit card. Then he looked at Inspector Quinn. "Inspector," Caprio said, "what is the status of her license?" "With these charges, Your Honor, she is eligible for a 6-month suspension," Quinn replied, his voice devoid of sympathy. "Suspension?" Jessica's head snapped up. The phone went down. "Wait, no. My dad said if I pay the fine, no suspension. That's how it works." "That is not how it works," Caprio said. "This is a court of law, not a vending machine. You don't put money in and get the result you want." Jessica's face flushed. For the first time, the boredom cracked. But it wasn't replaced by humility. It was replaced by anger. "But I have the money," she insisted, waving the card. "Why are you making this a big deal? It's just speeding. Everyone does it." "Not everyone does. It," Caprio corrected her. "And not everyone behaves this way in my courtroom." He picked up his pen. "Jessica, I am looking at your record. I am looking at your attitude. And I am worried. I am worried that if I let you walk out of here with just a fine, you are going to hurt someone. Maybe yourself. Maybe someone else's child." "I'm a good driver," she shouted. "A good driver," Caprio said, his voice turning steely, "does not pass in the breakdown lane. A good driver respects the law. A good driver respects the police." He looked down at the paper. "I am not inclined to accept a fine today. I am looking at a mandatory driving school, and I am considering suspending your license until you complete it." That was when it happened. The reality of the word suspension hit her. No car, no driving to school, no driving to practice, no freedom. It was a fate worse than death for a 16-year-old. But instead of begging, instead of apologizing, she doubled down. She retreated to the only defense she knew: entitlement. She straightened up. She put the credit card on the podium with a sharp clack. "You can't do that," she said. "I can't?" Caprio asked. "No," she said. And then she delivered the line that stopped the room cold. "I don't have to pay. My dad knows the mayor. He said I don't have to pay and I don't have to listen to this. He said you're just a municipal judge and you can't take my license." The silence that followed was deafening. It was the kind of silence that happens right before an explosion, or right before a revelation. Judge Caprio sat there. He looked at the girl. He looked at the credit card. He looked at the flag behind him. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just let her words hang there, ugly and exposed. Just a municipal judge. My dad knows the mayor. It was the oldest power play in the book. It was the attempt to use connections to bypass consequences. It was everything that Frank Caprio has spent his career fighting against. He believes that the courtroom is the one place where the son of a billionaire and the son of a plumber are equal. And here was this child, trying to tilt the scales with her father's name. Finally, Caprio spoke. "Inspector Quinn," he said. "Do we have her father's number on file?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Is he here?" "No, Your Honor, she came alone." "Call him," Caprio ordered. Jessica's eyes went wide. "What?" "Because," Caprio said, picking up the phone handset on his desk, "if your father truly told you that you don't have to pay, and that you don't have to respect this court, then I would very much like to hear him say it to me. Right now." Jessica reached for the podium. "No, you don't have to call him. He's busy." "He's not too busy to give you legal advice," Caprio said calmly. "Let's get him on the line. Let's see if his jurisdiction extends to my courtroom." The speakerphone rang. 1 ring, 2 rings. The sound echoed through the silent room. Jessica looked terrified. The bravado was melting like ice in the sun. The dad knows the mayor shield was crumbling because she knew, deep down, that her dad probably hadn't said exactly that. Or if he never expected her to say it here. "Hello?" A male voice answered. A deep, professional voice. "Mr. M?" Quinn asked into the microphone. "This is the Providence Municipal Court. You are on speakerphone with Judge Frank Caprio." There was a pause on the other end. A long pause. "Judge Caprio?" The father's voice came back, sounding suddenly very alert. "Is everything all right? Is Jessica okay?" The judge leaned into the microphone. "Jessica is physically fine, sir," Caprio said. "But we have a problem. A significant problem." Jessica was shaking her head violently, mouthing, "Don't tell him." "She is standing here," Caprio continued, his eyes locked on the girl, "telling this court that she does not have to pay her fines. She is telling me that you told her she is above the law. She claims that because you know the mayor, my authority does not apply to her." The silence on the other end of the phone was heavy. You could practically hear the father's heart stop. "She said..." "What?" the father whispered. "She said she doesn't have to pay," Caprio repeated. "Now, sir, I want to ask you directly. Did you instruct your daughter to come into my courtroom and disrespect the officers and the court? Did you tell her that her last name buys her immunity?" "No." The father's voice exploded through the speakers. "Absolutely not. Your Honor, I am mortified. I told her to go there, be respectful, pay the fine, and apologize. I never said that." Jessica shrank. She looked about 2 feet shorter than she had a minute ago. The lie was exposed. The bluff was called. "She also has 3 speeding tickets in 2 weeks, Caprio added, "and she was driving recklessly in the breakdown lane." 3. The father sounded breathless. I thought it was 1. She told me it was 1 parking ticket. 3 speeding tickets, Caprio confirmed. And she believes she is a good driver who is being persecuted. Your Honor, the father said, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and embarrassment. I apologize. I apologize on behalf of my family. I had no idea. I gave her the car. I thought she was responsible. She is 16, Caprio said gently, but firmly. She is a child. And right now she is a child armed with a weapon she doesn't know how to control. And she is armed with an attitude that is going to get her hurt. I apologize, Judge, the father repeated, his voice heavy with disappointment. Put her back on the line, please. Or, actually, just tell her this. The car is gone. Jessica gasped. Dad. Don't dad me, the voice on the speakerphone snapped. You lied to the judge, you lied to me, and you put people in danger. I'm not paying those fines, Jessica. You're going to get a job, and you're going to pay every cent. And the car? It's staying in the garage until you learn how to act like a human being? The line clicked dead. Hum of the dial tone filled the room. Jessica stood there, the phone still in her hand, the credit card forgotten on the podium. The bubble of entitlement hadn't just popped. It had been obliterated. My dad knows the mayor card had turned into the my dad is furious reality. She looked small now. The defiance was gone, replaced by the terrified look of a teenager who realizes she has pushed the boundaries too far and fallen off the edge. Tears began to well up in her eyes. Real tears this time. Not the manipulative kind she might use to get out of a curfew, but the hot, stinging tears of public humiliation. She stammered. I didn't mean… Judge Caprio hung up the phone on his desk. He folded his hands and looked at her. The anger was gone from his face. Now there was only pity and concern. Jessica, he said softly. Do you know why I called him? She shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. To get me in trouble. No, Caprio said. I called him because I want you to live to be 17. The room went deadly quiet again. You think this is about money? Caprio continued, his voice echoing in the hush. You think this is about the city wanting your $500? You think the police officer stopped you because he didn't like your car? You are wrong. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I have sat on this bench for a long time, and I have seen parents stand exactly where you are standing. But they weren't holding credit cards. They were holding photos. Photos of children who didn't come home because they thought they were good drivers who could speed in the breakdown lane. Jessica looked down. She was sobbing quietly now. When you drive a car, Caprio said, you are guiding a missile. If you lose control for 1 second, you don't just get a ticket. You destroy a family. You end a life. And you have to live with that for the rest of yours. No amount of money, no connection to the mayor, no credit card can fix that. He paused, letting the weight of the words settle on her shoulders. You came in here with an attitude that you were above the rules, he said. But the laws of physics don't care who your father is. If you crash at 50 miles an hour, you die just like anyone else. I'm sorry, Jessica whispered. And this time, the room believed her. I'm really sorry. I believe you, Caprio said. But sorry doesn't teach you how to drive safely. And sorry doesn't erase 3 speeding tickets. He picked up his pen. I am not going to suspend your license for 6 months, Caprio announced. Jessica looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. But, Caprio added, raising a finger, I am not letting you drive today. Or tomorrow. He turned to the inspector. I want her enrolled in the Alive at 25 defensive driving course. Mandatory. And I want her to perform 20 hours of community service. Not just any service. I want you to do it at the rehabilitation center, where victims of car accidents go to learn how to walk again. He looked back at Jessica. You go there, he said. You see what happens when a car hits a person. You look at the consequences. And you come back here in 1 month with proof that you did it. If you do that, and if you pay the fines with your own money you earned, like your father said, then I will dismiss the reckless driving charge. Do we have a deal? It was a tough sentence. It required work. It required humility. It required facing the reality of her actions. Jessica nodded. She sniffled, straightened her posture just a little bit, and looked the judge in the eye. Yes, Your Honor. We have a deal. Good, Caprio said. And Jessica? Yes? Respect isn't something you demand, he said, a small, kind smile finally returning to his face. It's something you give. Start giving it, and you'll be surprised how much you get back. Thank you, Judge, she said softly. She took her credit card. She put it back in her bag. She didn't saunter out. She walked quickly, head down, humbled. She walked past the police officer she had insulted earlier. She paused, just for a second, and mumbled, "Sorry." The officer nodded. "Drive safe, kid." As the doors closed behind her, the energy in the room was different. It wasn't tense anymore. It felt cleansed. It felt like everyone had just learned a lesson, not just the girl. Judge Caprio took a sip of water. He adjusted his robe. He looked at the camera, then back at his docket. "Inspector," he said, his voice back to its business-like rhythm. Next case. The screen fades to black, leaving us with the echo of the gavel. We live in a culture that often confuses privilege with power. We see people who think that rules are for other people, for the poor, for the unconnected, for the ones who don't have a platinum card. But in the courtroom of Frank Caprio, those illusions are stripped away. Jessica walked in thinking she was a customer. She thought she could buy her way out of trouble. She thought her father's name was a shield. But she walked out with something far more valuable than a dismissed ticket. She walked out with a reality check. She learned that a father who loves you doesn't enable you. He corrects you. She learned that a judge who cares about you doesn't let you off the hook. He puts you on the right path. And perhaps most importantly, she learned that the true cost of our actions isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives, in safety, and in the respect we show to the people around us. There is a version of this story where the judge just fined her and let her go. In that version, maybe she speeds again next week. Maybe she doesn't make it home. But because someone cared enough to say no, because someone cared enough to stop the entitlement in its tracks, she has a chance to grow up. That is the power of restorative justice. It doesn't just punish the deed, it heals the doer. If you believe that tough love is sometimes the best love, and if you believe that justice is about saving lives, not just collecting fines, then you are part of this community. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep spreading the message that no matter who your father is or how much money is in your pocket, kindness and responsibility are the only currencies that truly matter. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in court.